Hello, and welcome to my critical review of Star Trek, Into Darkness. If you have missed my review from Star Trek 2009, I will leave a link below for your convenience. With that said, let us begin with a super skinny summary of the movie. Star Trek, Into Darkness. Released in 2013. Written by the dynamic dunces, Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orci, plus another J.J. Crony and hack, Damon Lindelof. Directed by J.J. Abrams. On a mission, Kirk and crew intervene on a primitive civilization breaking the Prime Directive. Upon returning to Starfleet, Kirk is reprimanded and Admiral Pike is given command of the Enterprise and elects Kirk to be his first officer. On Earth, an unknown Starfleet worker's daughter is terminally ill and is approached by a stranger stating he can help him. Giving him a vial of his blood, his daughter makes a miraculous recovery. The next day, the stranger collects his price and the worker suicide bombs a Starfleet records building. Starfleet senior staff convenes in the most insecure room on the entire campus to discuss. Not knowing the bombing target was Section 31, Kirk plays with his iPad and deduces that it was bombed in order for the senior staff to be convened and thus be ambushed, which conveniently happens. After a ruckus, the terrorist trans-warp beams to Kronos and Admiral Pike is killed. Pissed off, Kirk vows for revenge and Robocop grants it, reinstating Kirk command of the Enterprise, ordering him to assassinate the terrorist John Harrison. Prepping for the mission, Scotty resigns his post protesting the new Photon torpedoes loaded in the Enterprise. The Enterprise gets assigned a second science officer and Chekhov is assigned as chief engineer. Upon warping to Kronos, Spock constantly bitches and moans about the assassination mission when Chekhov had to shut down the warp engine suddenly. They make their way on shuttle the rest of the way, and after a firefight, the terrorist surrenders willingly. Brought aboard, he tells Kirk and Spock he is Khan and why he did what he did, and gives Kirk a set of coordinates to prove he is telling the truth. Kirk calls Scotty to investigate and he finds a secret base by Jupiter and enters. On a planetoid, Marcus and Bones investigate one of the photons and find that there are people inside. Upon returning back to Earth, the Enterprise is intercepted by the Vengeance with Robocop in command. After a short spiel, he fires on Enterprise and is about to destroy it when the weapons become inoperable due to Scotty. Kirk and Khan space jump over to the Vengeance and Spock calls Old Spock for help. They eventually make their way to the bridge and Khan kills Robocop. He then hails the Enterprise, bargaining for his crew be beamed over for Kirk and Scotty. The exchange is complete and Khan attacks the Enterprise and the torpedoes beamed over are detonated. Due to the damage inflicted on the Enterprise, it helplessly falls into Earth's gravity. Kirk gets the warp core back online and dies. The Vengeance plummets as well and Khan steers a kamikaze course to Starfleet HQ. Surviving the crash, Spock beams down in pursuit. After a chase, Spock activates batshit crazy mode and Khan is incapacitated. Back on the Enterprise, they inject some of Khan's blood into Kirk and he is now not dead anymore. After some time passes, the Enterprise begins its 5-year mission. The end. As the previous movie created an alternate timeline in order to have the freedom to create their own stories without treading on existing canon, these dunces weren't able to create something completely new on their own, but dip their hands into the nostalgia well and fuck up what was already created. One is led to say, why go through the hassle of going through the motions of setting up a new timeline, if one is going to rehash existing and established characters again?
I don't know why you keep hiring that fucking guy.
So let's get into the nitty-gritty of the movie and you can make up your own mind if this movie was an improvement from the last one. Issue 1. The Nibiru Volcano. Nibiru, a Class M planet, the Enterprise crew have decided to avert a volcanic eruption. Why? Because an indigenous civilization has taken up residence right next to it, and if it erupts, the entire civilization will be killed and erased. However, that is not all. As per Spock,
Our only chance to save this species. If this volcano erupts, the planet dies.
Yes. You heard that too. If the volcano erupts, not only would the civilization be killed, but the entire planet will die.
Get the fuck out of here.
This movie has just started, and once again, within the first 5 minutes of the movie, we are bombarded with stupidity. Just like the last movie, a single star-going supernova will destroy an entire galaxy. In this movie, we get a little more local, stating a single volcano will render the entire planet uninhabitable.
I don't know why you keep hiring that fucking guy.
This is Star Trek. A franchise with an established following with a geek's level of intelligence. Granted, the dunces right to accommodate all moviegoers, but one has to wonder what age demographic they are aiming for. These dunces are not just dumbing down the material for the viewer, but rather they are just straight up dumb, and we have only scratched the surface of this first issue. To begin with, the mission violates the Prime Directive regardless if they are seen or not. If a native civilization decides to make residence next to an active volcano, then so be it. The Federation cannot interfere with the natural evolution of a civilization. By preventing the volcano from wiping out the civilization, it changes the natural development. Thus, Kirk and crew are playing God. With that out of the way, let's look at the actual plan. Sulu is going to fly into the volcano and lower Spock to the surface via cable, where he will activate a device that will prevent the volcano from erupting. As usual, the mission goes tits up with the shuttle engine overheating and Spock's cable snapping. Based off the readout display, Spock is dangling approximately 198 meters from the surface. After a bit of jostling from the shuttle, the cable snaps. Based off of the movements shown, the shuttles was descending as well as ascending, so being conservative, I estimate the cable snapped at about 150 meters. To put that into perspective, that is a fall of approximately 45 stories. With a fall of that height, not only is Spock uninjured, but he also managed to not fall into a pool of lava. What are the chances? Now with Spock on the volcano surface uninjured. The device is also undamaged as well. What else is new? With the shuttle damaged and unable to make it back to the Enterprise, Sulu and Uhura ditch the shuttle and swim. That's right. Swim back to the Enterprise that is hiding underwater. Why isn't it orbiting the planet like a normal starship? Who knows? Anyway, the new dilemma is Spock is now stuck inside the volcano and will die when the device goes off. Kirk and Spock bitch and moan about not violating the Prime Directive. Thus, Spock is willing to die in order to preserve the Prime Directive. However, he should have known that undertaking this very mission is a violation of it, so why did he agree to undertake the mission in the first place? Sounds very contradictory to me. Anyway, Kirk exposes the Enterprise to the natives and flies over the volcano and beams Spock out just in time. That's the solution? Remember, Spock survived a 45-story fall in the device as well. That begs the question, why did Spock even need to be lowered down in the first place? All he had to do was set the device on a timer and lower it down and drop it and then fly away. Better yet, if they were able to beam Spock out, why didn't they just beam him in? From the previous movie, they conducted site-to-site transports on 2 separate occasions. Why not do the same thing here?
I don't know why you keep hiring that fucking guy.
At this point, some of you are probably thinking I am nitpicking every detail of the movie. You might even be saying this beginning action scene has nothing to do with the story anyway. Let me reiterate my perspective just like the first movie. This is the very beginning of the movie. Once again, the writers have a complete blank slate in front of them. They can write any scenario they want, and once again the dunces paint themselves into a corner unable to get out without any character growth whatsoever. Even if you give the writers the benefit of the doubt and say they are setting up Kirk's character arc here, then what the hell was the point of the entire first movie other than prove to us viewers that Kirk never should have been promoted to captain in the first place, contradicting their own stupid writing. Either they were stupid then, or stupid now, or stupid all along.
Where did you learn your trade, you stupid fucking cunt, you idiot?
Issue 2. Kirk assigned to the Academy. After the botched mission on Nibiru, the Enterprise returns to Starfleet HQ. Pike yells at Kirk and Spock for breaking the Prime Directive. Everything that Pike says is correct. For Spock to justify his actions stating that the natives wouldn't have been aware of their presence had the mission been successful is completely out of character, and of course, completely wrong. Pike states to Kirk that he has been relying on blind luck to resolve his outcomes. Now that is a clear reference to the previous movie, is it not? Blind luck, or rather, dumb luck was the result of more than one of many resolutions in order to arrive at the previous movie's outcome. And yet, based off of this admission from Pike, he still nominated and endorsed Kirk to be promoted from cadet to captain and hand him the keys to the Federation flagship. Does that make sense? Pike also says Kirk doesn't respect the chair and that he isn't ready. Now he realizes that? This dialogue ruins any remaining credibility he had. Of course Kirk was not command ready after one mission. If you give him command of a ship, why wouldn't he do what he's already been doing? It's worked for him. What piece of evidence can be presented to show he would make sound and rational decisions and respect and obey the orders handed to him? That's right. Nothing. Anyway, Pike says he could not protect him, and Kirk has been stripped of his command and sent back to the Academy. Back to the Academy. Why? To do what exactly? Is he supposed to take classes again? Definitely not to teach a class. It makes absolutely no sense. However, before he gets sent back to the Academy, Starfleet gives command of the Enterprise to Pike. Why? He's an admiral. Admirals do not helm starships. Is there a shortage of captains in Starfleet? Anyway, He persuades Starfleet to have Kirk be his first officer. None of this makes sense, but just like the previous movie, these stupid decisions have to happen.
I don't know why they keep hiring that fucking guy.
Issue 3. Mickey. I don't know the name of the Starfleet worker with the terminally ill daughter, so for convenience's sake, let's just refer to him as Mickey. Granted, Khan has the ability to cure Mickey's daughter. However, the price to saving her is at the cost of his own life along with countless others. Now ask yourself, would you pay the price of saving your daughter, by sacrificing yourself, and murdering a handful of innocent lives? Sacrificing yourself is one thing, but to commit murder by suicide is another. Only a psycho or sociopath would make that decision, and Mickey is not portrayed as either. Add on to the fact that he is a Starfleet employee. Which means he's gone through background checks and vetted thoroughly in order to gain security clearances to the highest level of classified materials. A person that has gone through this much vetting is going to be so easily judgmentally compromised?
Sure, Jan.
Pathetic.
Issue 4. The Ring Bomb in Section 31. In the Kelvin timeline, the Dunce writers have canonized trans-warp beaming using only the energy output of an obsolete shuttle. A supernova having the destructive power of destroying an entire galaxy. A volcano with the destructive power of rendering a Class M planet as uninhabitable. Safe site-to-site beaming without any knowledge of the location one is beaming to. A simulation that tests cadets about the fear of death, which they are allowed to take multiple times without any changes to the simulation parameters. And last but not least, a cadet can be promoted to captain after undertaking one single mission, where its success was solely due to dumb luck. With that said, let us now introduce the next idiotic thing. The ring bomb. It is an explosive that is the size of a ring, which is completely inert by itself, but when submerged in a cup of water has the destructive force of, at the very least, a 1,000-pound bomb. Before you start complaining to me and saying the explosion was due to ordnance exploding on site, the ring bomb needs to be strong enough to reach it and breach the housing of it, which it does almost instantaneously. Also, why is Section 31 housing explosive ordnance in such a populated location? They live in a transporter world now with beaming technology, which means you can live in London, work in space, and have a gyro in Greece for lunch. There is absolutely no reason to house dangerous materials anywhere close to a populated region. We don't even do that in the 21st century, let alone a 22nd century's socialist utopia. I can hear some of you complaining that this is another nitpick, and maybe it is to some. However, these writers were paid good money to write this movie. I don't think it is too demanding to hold them to certain standards. Being that this is Star Trek that already has an established canon, I don't think it is overly demanding that the writers abide by what has already been established as possible. Anybody can write anything and explain it by pulling whatever bullshit out of their ass. It is the writer's job to write a plausible story, with compelling characters. It has been done before many times over. That is not asking for much, and yet time and time again, these idiots continue to get job offers for writing shit like this. Issue 5. First Officer Kirk and his iPad. Although Kirk is first officer for only a brief time, the convenience is astounding. If Pike does not plead for him to have first officer status, he never would have been at the senior staff meeting. We'll get into the ambush later, but in the meantime, let us discuss Kirk and his iPad. Starfleet senior staff is convened to discuss the terrorist bombing in London. As Robocop addresses the staff, Kirk fiddles with his iPad and keys in on John Harrison. We know the place bombed was not a Federation archive, and it was bombed because it was Section 31. Of course, Kirk doesn't know that, and he goes on to deduce that the reason why a non-strategic location was bombed was to convene senior staff in its current location, which makes them gather for a prime location to be ambushed. So First Officer Kirk, without knowing the full facts of the situation at hand, is still right. Once again, like the chances of lightning striking the same spot twice, dumb luck strikes Kirk again and again and again. Since only a select few in Starfleet even know of the existence of Section 31, all the other officers should be questioning the size of the explosion. How could a terrorist plant such a large explosive in a heavily populated and Starfleet secure location? Yet, nobody does, because Starfleet is made up of a bunch of idiots except for one dumb luck officer. Obviously, the dunce writers were trying to show off Kirk's intelligence in sniffing out the true motivations of John Harrison. Let's assume for a moment that Kirk knew it was Section 31, thus the target was a strategic location. Does he come to the same conclusion as he did before? He shouldn't, and the senior staff meeting was ambushed anyway. Do you see the obvious dumb luck?
I don't know why they keep hiring that fucking guy.
Issue 6. Senior staff meeting. If you haven't poured yourself a strong drink, I would say it's about time. Yes, We've already gone through some boneheaded retarded storytelling, but this next one is fucking retarded. There is a reason why in the last days Hitler lived in a bunker. There is a reason why there are underground tunnels for the Capitol building and the Pentagon. There is a reason why there is a bunker inside the White House. It is about security. We know this. The government knows we know this and they don't care because that isn't the point. It is all about security for government officials. Given Starfleet senior staff are quite important, security around them in a classified meeting one would think should be pretty tight. And where do they hold their important classified meeting? On the top floor of a glass building on a campus with unsecured airspace.
Fucking hell.
Seriously, I don't have the words to express how stupid this is. Even in a socialistic utopia, one would believe a society would use their due diligence in holding classified meetings in a secure location. However, what is the point of this ambush? To kill Robocop. However, only he knows where Khan's crew is, and if he kills him, how is he going to find them? Now you might be saying he wasn't trying to kill him, but just put the thought into Robocop's head so that he would pursue him. Well, we already know he was going to do that anyway, so his ambush was completely pointless then. If he was attempting to kill Robocop, then this brings me back to the ring bomb. If it was so easy to find a Starfleet officer to be compromised, why didn't he just do the same thing? Better yet, knowing where the senior staff was to be convened, he could have fabricated his ring bombs next to the sprinkler systems and easily set off the sprinklers to trigger, thus exploding the entire room, killing everybody present. In this scenario, their meeting doesn't even have to be held in the most insecure location on Starfleet campus, making it a much more plausible option. Just to prove the building has a sprinkler system installed, what is it that Kirk ties the phaser rifle to? That's right. A fire hose. If the building has a fire hose, then clearly the building uses water to extinguish a fire. Thus, there is a sprinkler system in the building. If stupid writers are going to write stupid reasons to move their story along, and then become blissfully ignorant to their own stupid reasons later in the movie, it only proves the level of talent these idiots truly possess.
God damn it! Motherfucker!
Issue 7. Transwarp beaming. As we see in the ambush, when Khan's ship becomes inoperable, he transwarp beams away. Upon investigating the wreckage, Scotty finds a transwarp device from on the ship. That's right. Not only is transwarp give one the ability to transport people and cargo light years away with only the power of a small one-man ship, but it is also portable enough to be held by a single person. Long gone are the times when an entire room was needed to have the computing power of a simple laptop, or when a 1 GB hard drive was considered a lot of memory. Those times never existed in the Kelvin timeline, thanks to these idiot writers. Anyway, per the device, it shows the coordinates he beamed to was the Klingon home world of Kronos. Per Memory Alpha, it is stated that Kronos is 4 days away from Earth at warp 4.5. As I have already stated in the previous movie's critique, transwarp beaming is not only stupid, but ruins established canon. I won't rehash it here, but let me just point out that the idiot writers dipped into the stupid well for a second time. To prove how stupid this is, Alan Dean Foster wrote the novelization of the movie. In the book, he says Khan didn't beam directly to Kronos, but rather made a series of jumps. Beaming to a location and then beaming to another location until he arrived at Kronos. If this were true in the movie, the coordinates on the device would have been to the location he beamed to from the ship and not Kronos. The idea of beaming vast light years away in a single trip using minimal power using a portable device was so absurd to Alan Dean Foster, that he changed it when writing the book.
Enough!
Issue 8. Assassinate Sherlock. With Kirk still steaming over Pike being whacked, he tells Robocop where Sherlock beamed to. Robocop divulges the existence of Section 31 to Kirk and Spock and then gives Kirk the task of assassinating the terrorist John Harrison. That's right. Assassinate a fugitive. Not bring him in to face justice. Not bring him in with any means necessary. Not even.
Dead or alive, you are coming with me.
No. Robocop, the top dog at Starfleet, orders Kirk to whack Sherlock like a mob boss. And Kirk, our protagonist that has supposedly had his character developed and tempered over an entire movie, and just had his protective father figure die in front of him, agrees to the hit without a single word of protest. Kirk, a captain of a starship, who is responsible for his ship and crew, who is a representative of Starfleet and the United Federation of Planets, living in a socialistic utopia, agrees to whack another person with no questions asked.
Get the fuck out of here.
Are you fucking joking?
Issue 9. Spock's incessant bitching and whining. As we see, Spock is present when Robocop issues the whack job on Sherlock. However, he says all of jack and shit in protest. There is no death penalty in the Federation. And like interfering with the natural evolution of a civilization is a clear violation of the Prime Directive, ordering a whack job is in clear defiance of Federation regulations. Instead of Spock bringing this up with Robocop right on the spot, he says nothing, and then begins his incessant bitching and whining to Kirk. It's not like he didn't have a chance to address his issues with the mission. So that leaves only two options on why he did what he did. He was unable to address it, or he was unwilling to address it. Based off of the character of Spock, the answer is neither. The reason why is because the poor and idiot writers not grasping Spock as a character, and not understanding the absurd idea of Starfleet ordering an assassination mission.
Assholes.
Unlike Scotty, Spock does not resign his position in protest. Instead, he continues bitching and whining in front of the crew about the mission until Kirk has a change of heart in the final hour, not because he agrees with Spock, but just to stop his incessant bitching. So after an entire movie of supposed character development, our two main protagonists are still a pair of petulant douchebags.
Fucking hell.
Issue 10. Damn the Photon torpedoes. Gone are the sleek black metal Maui Jim Mark 6 photons, and in are these ugly gray plastic dildo photons, but I digress. Anyway, these new photons are loaded aboard the Enterprise at Scotty's protest, as he is unable to determine the fuel source these photons are using because it is shielded, and Starfleet won't tell him because it's classified. Obviously this begs the question as to why the fuel source is shielded. Of all things that might be shielded, it would be the warhead. So right off the bat, this is stupid and makes no sense. Of course we know the reason why they're shielded is because the fuel source has been replaced with people. That's right. Khan's crew are taking up the fuel compartments. And who ordered these photons to be loaded onto the Enterprise? Robocop, of course. Why? If these photons are supposed to be used to assassinate Sherlock with, then don't they need fuel in order to be operable? This makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. However, there is another reason why they are loaded onto the Enterprise, and yes, that reason will make no sense as well, other than to convenience the idiotic story being told. To be continued.
Shit.
Issue 11. Spock, Uhura, and the beta male captain. I've already alluded how I feel about the writing in this movie, as well as the previous one. Although the writing is shit throughout the entire movie, I want to highlight this scene specifically as it shows off how shitty it truly is. Just to put you in the right mindset, you know how people talk in Trek. They speak a lot of technobabble and exposit mission details. With that said, Trek is not without humor. It has its own way of doing so by either having a light-hearted episode or relegating them to the end of an episode. However, in this part of the movie, Spock and Uhura undertake an away mission together with Kirk, and engage in pointless, banal, and unprofessional banter, in front of their senior officer. What does the dialogue consist of? Spock and Uhura's failed relationship. Seriously, which one of these bitches thought it would be entertaining for a Trek movie to eavesdrop on a couple bitching about their relationship? When did Trek become a fucking Bravo Channel special? And of course, while the two bitch back and forth about pointless bullshit, Kirk, the beta male captain, is at a total loss for words. This entire scene does nothing to advance the story at all, but this is used for character development. So exactly what did we learn from this exchange of pointless dialogue about our characters? Uhura,
San Francisco cocksucker,
is pissed off because Spock acts like a Vulcan. And instead of talking about their botched mission on Nibiru when Spock almost died and accepted his inevitable fate, she brings it up during a fucking away mission. Such professionalism. Next. There's Spock.
Guy's a fucking asshole.
During their unprofessional exchange, he tells her that she misinterprets his meaning of death. He goes on to tell her what Pike felt at the moment of his death when he unethically and immorally mind-melded with him without asking for consent. Of course, no normal person wants to die and will do everything they can in order to preserve their own life. However, if one is enlisted in a service that requires them to be put into harm's way, then that is the choice they did willingly, and Uhura,
Cocksucker! San Francisco!
should fucking know that too, being an officer of Starfleet as well. This is blatant common sense that we all know and accept, and yet these fuckhead writers constantly force feed us this fake and hollow dialogue. Last, we have beta male Kirk.
Oh! You kicked me right in the pussy!
Never in this entire Kelvin timeline has any subordinate truly showed deference to Kirk or his rank. Spock, Uhura, Bones, all talk at his level, or even talk down to him in front of the entire crew. Not only is this blatant unprofessionalism, it is also blatant bullshit. This isn't Trek. This is some bullshit show on the CW network. At the same time, never does Kirk exert his rank to these subordinates. He may show dismay to them, but that is it. When his two subordinates began their petty antics, He should have exerted his command emphatically and said,
Shut the fuck up!
However, Kelvin Timeline Kirk is no shat. So we have to expect more beta male Kirk.
Oh! You kicked me right in the pussy!
Issue 12. Klingon Space. As the Enterprise begins their merry way to Kronos, Chekhov abruptly stops the Enterprise due to the warp core overheating. He assumes it is a coolant leak and their warp capabilities are limited until he finds the problem. Kirk asks Sulu how far they are from Kronos, and he says 20 minutes. I can only assume he meant 20 minutes at their previous speed, which being this is still the exact same day they took off from the Terran system, they were going close to maximum warp. As I already stated, Memory Alpha has Kronos 4 days away at warp 4.5. Clearly in JJ Trek, they don't abide by established canon, so 20 minutes away doesn't tell us anything in regards to distance. Nevertheless, as the first movie was absurdly horrendous at attention to detail, this movie is equally bad if not worse. Just for sake of argument, let us assume they are 20 minutes away from Kronos at warp 4.5. That is a more than conservative warp factor to use. Per Wikipedia, the speed of light, or warp 1 is 671 million miles per hour. Translating that speed into minutes, that equates to 11,183,333 miles per minute. Multiply that by a factor of 4.5 and we get 50,325,000 miles. Now multiply that by 20 and we get 1,006,500,000 miles away. For perspective, that distance is approximately here to a point between Saturn and Uranus, which translates that they are definitely past the neutral zone and within Klingon space. From here, Kirk says they will take a shuttle the rest of the way. A shuttle does not have warp drives and their impulse drives are not as large as the Enterprise, but will give them the benefit of the doubt for this exercise. Full impulse is stated as 1/4 the speed of light. Which means 671 million divided by 4 is 167,750,000 miles per hour. Which means from where the Enterprise is, it would take them 6 hours to get to Kronos. In the movie, because they are 20 minutes away, Sulu says that is 20 minutes too long being in Klingon space, when in reality, it's at the very least 12 hours plus their away mission's time too long in Klingon space. In regards to all of this math, I agree that is nitpicking the details. However, the way it is presented is so amateurish and juvenile, at this point, all I can say is, what else is new? The issue lies with them being in Klingon space. The Enterprise is within the Kronos system and they are never encountered by any Klingon ships. They are easily within range of Kronos' long-range scanners and not only that, Sulu transmits a threat to Sherlock, which of course any Klingons monitoring the airwaves will pick up and yet, they are still met with zero repercussions. So during the entire time of the away mission, which the Klingons know with definitive proof that alien humans are on their planet, the Enterprise still even have the time to conduct their Photon torpedo investigation on a nearby planetoid, and still, not a single Klingon patrol is encountered.
What the fuck is this?
Bunch of fucking nonsense.
Issue 13. Klingons. As this is the Kelvin timeline, and the incursion of Nero into this timeline would have zero effect on the way the Klingons would look, they look even less menacing than in the Prime timeline. As I've already stated how the Enterprise doesn't encounter a single Klingon patrol, let us key on another aspect. Sherlock beamed to Kronos in what is known as the uninhabited region of Kronos. Why? Why is there an uninhabited region on their planet? Yes, Antarctica is pretty much uninhabited other than some outposts and penguins, and the reason why it is uninhabited is because of the horrible weather conditions and the land cannot be terraformed for normal living. However, why is this region uninhabited? What is wrong with it that prevents the Klingons from terraforming it? Based off of the way they are dressed, the climate is temperate. There is a solid foundation to erect buildings. The atmosphere is breathable. What is preventing an advanced race that has discovered faster than light travel in terraforming their own homeworld? Being that it is uninhabited, what is the point of running a random patrol into a region where nobody inhabits? And of course, when the patrol does encounter potential hostile aliens on their homeworld, why nobody reports it makes absolutely no sense. Of course, we already know the reason why. Sherlock isn't Klingon, so he can't blend in with the populace, and the idiot writers don't want to go into the politics of the Klingons and Federation, but wanted to introduce something Trek familiar for the sake of introducing something familiar. It's all made up bullshit that is conveniently built around the weak and shitty story the fuckhead writers have written.
Fuck, motherfucker!
Issue 14. John Harrison/Khan. I have already highlighted many questionable story choices, poor and pointless character development, and an overall package of juvenile dialogue shot by a cameraman suffering from ADHD off his meds. Even if you think everything I previously said were nitpicks, this issue is not. It is objectively stupid. I present to you the antagonist of the movie.
Shut up! Shut up!
Shut up!
That's right. The idiot writers ripped off many scenes from Trek 2, but we'll get to that later. Let's discuss John Harrison/Khan. First off, why is he called John Harrison? There is no reason for him to have an alias, being that nobody alive would have the slightest clue as to who he really is. Also, the name Khan isn't an uncommon name, and it isn't synonymous with Hitler or Stalin. Being that he Khan Noonien Singh is supposed to be of Indian descent, casting Sherlock is a clear whitewash. This casting proves that JJ is nothing less than a virtue-signaling hypocrite. If an Indian actor was cast, or even Benicio del Toro, do you think the pointless name of John Harrison would have been used? So just like the episode Space Seed, the Botany Bay is found drifting in space. Instead of the Enterprise find it, Robocop did and revived him. As we know, Khan and crew are genetically enhanced in physical strength and intelligence way back in the 20th century. It is Robocop that enlists the help of Khan in developing the Vengeance, I assume the ring bomb, the portable transwarp device, the new Photon torpedoes, and a plethora of other weaponry. Now you're asking yourself, how does a person from the 20th century know how to invent 23rd century technology? The answer is, who the fuck knows? The movie gives no reason. Now the next question is why? Why him? The answer is because people from the 20th century are more savage-like. Thus, they contain the mentality to develop weapons of destruction better than 23rd century people.
Are you fucking joking?
No. It's true and absolutely implausibly stupid at the same time. How this idiocy got green-lit, I have no idea. Now let's discuss Khan's motivations. What is it that he wants? Being that the Botany Bay was drifting in space prior to the incursion that creates the Kelvin timeline, Khan should be exactly the same as Montalban Khan.
Of course, why not the best?
He is ruthless and power-hungry and will use any means to obtain a position of power. In this movie, Robocop is holding the crew of the Botany Bay as leverage in order for Khan to assist him in developing these new weapons. Khan, being a ruthless leader, doesn't care about his crew specifically, but rather just wants followers regardless where they are from. For example, in Trek 2, if Khan were given the choice of staying with his crew on SETI Alpha 5, or getting off the planet without his crew, what choice do you think he'd make? Nevertheless, let's just play along with these idiot writers' version. According to Khan, he attempted to smuggle away his crew in the Photon torpedoes, but was discovered before he could complete his plan. He then assumed that Robocop killed his crew, which compelled him to blow up Section 31 and attempt his retarded assassination plot of Robocop at the senior staff meeting. What exactly led to his assumption that his crew were killed, who knows? We are not told or shown. However, what do we know about assumptions?
Assumption is the mother of all fuck-ups.
It would be safe to say that Khan fucked up on that one. So after his failed assassination attempt, what is his plan? With the portable transwarp device being left behind regardless if he was successful, he should know it would have his beaming coordinates left for all to see. If this was the plan, why? Again, one photon torpedo shot in his location would decimate the entire region, killing him. Given that he has an arsenal of weapons on Kronos, one can only assume he has been making covert trips back and forth to this location. And of course, had Spock not been incessantly bitching to Kirk, he would have carried out the assassination mission to the letter and Khan would have been killed without a firefight. It is only after Khan hears the threat of being killed with the torpedoes his crew are in, does he realize some of his smuggled crew are aboard the Enterprise. It is this information that makes Khan save the away team from the Klingons. Of course, Kirk and crew have no idea Khan's crew are in the torpedoes, thus once again, Kirk is saved by dumb luck. What are the chances? And once again, the writers do a fantastic job of showing Kirk's character development with him going batshit crazy on Khan after he formally surrenders to him.
I'm bleeding, making me the victor.
So let me sum up Khan. He's revived in the 23rd century. He's ordered by Robocop to develop technologically advanced weaponry beyond his scope of knowledge, because he comes from the 20th century when humans were more savage-like. His crew are held as leverage against him by Robocop to make him create these new weapons. Khan plots to smuggle his crew free, but is discovered by Robocop before he can complete the task. How? Who knows? Khan then assumes Robocop killed his crew. Why? Who knows? So Khan bribes a member of Starfleet, by curing his daughter's terminal illness in place of suicide bombing Section 31, killing himself along with countless other innocent bystanders. By committing that act of terrorism, Khan knew it would lead to the senior staff meeting headed by Robocop to convene in the most insecure location of Starfleet HQ, where Khan planned to murder him by randomly firing phaser blasts into the room, when we have already seen he has the technology to destroy the entire building. Now ask yourself, does any of that sound logical or rational to you?
No.
God damn it!
Issue 15. Admiral Robocop. Now let us delve into our secondary antagonist of the movie. Admiral Robocop is the head of Starfleet, the highest-ranking member. It is his order that makes Khan to develop the new weapons and the vengeance. It is also implied in the movie that he believes a war with the Klingons is inevitable. Why does he think that? Who knows? Assuming he's right, and a war is inevitable, his actions in preparing for it are stupid. What does he do, exactly? He gets Khan to build a bigger, stronger, and fully automated ship that only needs a skeleton crew. That sounds pretty damn smart. That is, if you were a third grader. As kids, we all liked the big ships, like the Constitution, the Bismarck, the Yamato, and Star Destroyers. However, we know that battleship combat was rendered obsolete by World War II. Thus, if a full-scale war were to happen, it would be much more beneficial and efficient to build smaller, lighter, and more agile warships. Not only would they be better in battle, it is also more efficient in production and economically. However, let me indulge the inner third grader to come out and play with this toy for a moment. Yes, it can withstand a lot of damage while doling out a buttload of destructive force on its own. So pray tell, why is it manned by only a skeleton crew? What is expected to happen when one goes into combat? One expects to take on damage. And when a ship sustains damage, damage crews are needed to repair it and keep the ship operational. If the skeleton crew is only a bridge crew, then how are the repairs going to be done? This is basic common sense. Again, I'm sure there are some of you thinking this is nitpicking the story too much, and if this was a dumb movie like Fast and Furious or Independence Day, I would agree. However, this is supposed to be Star Trek, and that is only part of the reason. The true reason why it is stupid is because of the technology specifically introduced in this movie. It is established that Starfleet can transwarp beam directly to Kronos, and apparently undetected. Why does one need to build a super-secret battleship, when one has the ability to run unlimited sabotage and espionage missions completely undetected? Starfleet can easily decimate their enemies' production capabilities as well as sabotage their entire shipyard with their site-to-site transwarp beaming. Thus, the inevitability of war would no longer be inevitable. So even if you agreed with all of that, you might be saying that is all background information, and not truly relevant to the story. True, but I hope you can see how truly stupid of a character these dunce writers base this character from the start. Let us now get into his decision-making that is relevant to the story. Being that he is the big cheese of Starfleet, and he is the one that found Khan, and he is the one that is having him make these advanced weapons against his will, and his actions would be considered as crimes on Earth, one would think he would keep that information to a very small and loyal group. Yet, he assigns Kirk, a captain that just defied orders, and broke the Prime Directive, a mission to assassinate another Starfleet officer, which is clearly against Starfleet regulations. By doing this, he isn't just informing Kirk of his corrupt actions, but at the very least, the entire senior staff of the Enterprise crew. And as corrupt of an order this is, Kirk and Spock, our two main protagonists, say all of jack and shit and fuck and all in protest.
Fucking hell.
Why is everyone so fucking stupid?
As stupid as his actions have been, we still are not done with this issue. Remember Khan's crew? They were being smuggled in the fuel compartments of the new Photon torpedoes. Of course Robocop knows this, as the fuel compartments are shielded and labeled as classified. So if Robocop knows there isn't any fuel on those photons, and he ordered Kirk to assassinate Khan, which Sulu has them loaded into the torpedo bays, how is he supposed to use them if there is no fuel in the torpedoes? Robocop is giving him completely useless ordnance to Kirk in order to carry out the assassination mission he ordered him to do. Seriously, what kind of a fucking retard orders a subordinate to kill somebody, and then hands him a gun with a box full of blanks to do the job? This is beyond stupid. These idiot writers can't be that stupid. Jar Jar approved it as well as all of the producers. This idiocy passed through all of these hands and nobody questioned it?
You are a worthless piece of shit, pal! Get out of my face!
I don't know why you keep hiring that fucking guy.
And of course, if Robocop knows Khan's crew are in those torpedoes, why is giving away all of his leverage he has on Khan? Why is he handing evidence that will incriminate him of his wrongdoing? I know we have been on this issue for a while now, but one last thing. He sabotaged the Enterprise's warp drive. If Chekhov did not discover it in time, the Enterprise would have blown up before reaching its intended destination. Why? Why would Robocop assign Kirk the assassination mission only to sabotage the ship before he could even carry out the assigned task? It's stated in the film that Robocop anticipated Kirk firing those torpedoes that had no fuel cells, and in retaliation, the Klingons would destroy the warp-inoperable Enterprise, thus initiating a Klingon and Federation war. And yet, based off of the actions in the movie, not even the first anticipated action was carried out. Robocop just assumed his plan was going to happen just as he had devised it, and our secondary antagonist is guilty of idiotic assumption. And again, we know what that brings.
Assumption is the mother of all fuck-ups.
Issue 16. The Secret Hangar. For Khan, there is a secret shipyard by Jupiter. Kirk phones Scotty from the neutral zone back to Earth to check it out. So he does. He goes via shuttle and finds a secret hangar that is closed. Just as he arrives, a working crew of shuttles arrive and everybody is granted access, no questions asked.
Are you fucking joking?
Get the fuck out of here.
I understand a suspension of disbelief, which is why beaming and warp speed are acceptable. However, I do not accept a suspension of implausibility. If a hangar that houses a super-secret battleship jazzed up with a plethora of advanced technology, it is going to, at the very least, require some form of authorization. Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, that built the likes of the SR-71 and the F-117 stealth jet, requires authorization and security clearance from their executives all the way down to their maintenance workers and janitors. For Scotty to just waltz right in without any clearance whatsoever is nothing less than 100% bullshit. How fucking convenient do they need to make it for their characters to do what they need to do, in order to tell this shitty story? Why nobody raised a red flag saying this is bullshit in a Star Trek movie, really shows how much they care about the franchise.
Assholes.
Issue 17. Old Spock. I'm all in favor of utilizing whatever assets one has in solving their issues. However, in a story, calling one's future self in order to solve a dilemma at hand is some weak sauce writing. Of course, the dunce writers do their best to mask it, by having Old Spock cite he vowed not to give any information about the future, but he does so anyway. It's a pointless rule if one is willing to break it even on certain instances. Once again, this is another failed attempt at character development. Instead of straight out showing new Spock from realizing Khan is a villain on his own, they show him call for help. Instead of showing he's confident in reading a character based on their actions, he needs to be reassured. This entire scene reeks of insecurity, and does not reinforce us that our protagonists are truly competent at the positions they hold. You might say that they added the scene, just to have Leonard Nimoy have a cameo. If so, go ahead. There is no need to make it a scene that requires a pivotal decision be made because of the information he conveyed. Even if Old Spock gave new Spock some philosophical wisdom that new Spock applies later in the movie, that would be fine. But to call Old Spock in a moment of urgency to reassure himself that Khan is a villain is weak as hell. Issue 18. Kirk dies. There is nothing funny about this movie. The jokes are lame, and the forced nostalgia is cringe at best. However, the scene in the movie that is supposed to be the most emotional, honestly gave me a chuckle. I know we are not able to control how we look when we die, but really do your best not to look like a moron.
Oh yeah, I can't do it! You're so gonna get in trouble! I can't do it! The lash is gonna come off!
As unintentionally funny as that was, it is also extremely stupid. Before Kirk does his space jump with Khan, he has a conversation with Spock saying he is not captain worthy. So after an entire movie, where he was promoted from cadet to captain after a single mission, after violating the Prime Directive, after taking on an illegal assassination mission and saying jack shit in protest, now he realizes he is not captain material. You want to know who else knew he wasn't worthy of being captain?
Everyone!
Anyway, upon returning from the Vengeance, the Enterprise has no thruster power, and Scotty and Kirk race to engineering. Apparently the artificial gravity is offline, but there is still gravity. It makes no sense, and we get a stupid shaky cam runaround action scene until they make it to the warp core. From here on out, the movie mimics Trek 2, trying to garner the same sense of urgency and the same sense of sacrifice. However, in Trek 2, if warp speed is not available, they all die. In this movie, the ship is falling due to gravity. Warp speed is not required, and yet, they say they need the warp core to be online. Why? Impulse power is more than sufficient and they wouldn't even need it to be at 100%.
Why is everyone so fucking stupid?
As usual, it makes no sense, but let us humor the dunce writers once again. Like Trek 2, they can't go inside the warp core due to the radiation. Kirk sacrifices himself and goes in to repair the warp core. As we all know, Kirk is not an engineer. He doesn't know anything outside of the basic knowledge of how to fix a warp core, unlike Spock who knows engineering. So if you had to guess how he would have to repair the warp core, what would you imagine? Maybe rerouting the engine coolant to the warp core. Maybe rerouting power from one system to another. No. He kicks. That's right. He hangs off the warp core and kicks it back in line.
I don't know why you keep hiring that fucking guy.
And once again, due to sheer dumb luck, Kirk saves the Enterprise and crew. Issue 19. The Vengeance crashes.
Shut up!
Shut up! Shut the fuck up!
So after the dirge is played for Kirk kicking the bucket and him giving his emotional death speech, the Vengeance plummets from the sky right on cue and Khan tries to kamikaze it into Starfleet HQ. Look at the ship for a moment. The main structure is completely intact. Just in case you forgot, 72 torpedoes were detonated inside the ship. What does that mean? Let me have Jason Isaacs explain it for us.
Imagine a firecracker in the palm of your hand. You set it off, what happens? You burn your hand, right? You close your fist around the same firecracker and set it off. Your wife's gonna be opening your ketchup bottles the rest of your life.
Yes, that's correct. That was a scene from Armageddon, directed by Michael Bay. And who wrote that movie? That's right. Michael Bay's protege, Jar Jar Abrams.
Fucking hell.
In Trek 3, the Grissom was destroyed by a single photon. A fluke. Yes. In Trek 6, about 10 photon exterior hits destroyed a bird of prey. Not only is this a precedent in Trek canon, but it is also commonsensically plausible. Now you have 72 advanced photons being detonated within a ship, and the ship's structure is completely intact is beyond bullshit. Of course the dunce writers wanted to have their stupid Streets of San Francisco chase scene, which is fine. Just don't detonate 72 fucking torpedoes inside the ship. This scene clearly shows how shitty a director Jar Jar is. If he actually wrote the dialogue in Armageddon, then he should have raised a red flag when reading the script. Unfortunately, he suffers from acute ADHD as a director and doesn't concern himself with plausibility or common sense. I'm sure some of you are thinking this is nitpicking the movie, and let me say again that if the idiot writers and the idiot director wanted to specifically have this action set piece, it is their job to write a sequence that leads up to this set piece within the realm of plausibility. Is a writer's job just to write implausible shit just to bridge the gap to the next action set piece? Of course not. Or at least, that's not what they are supposed to do. Issue 20. Magic Blood. After a quick chase, Spock catches up with Khan and activates batshit crazy mode. Just like the first movie, he is batshit crazy to the point of murdering Khan. However, Uhura,
San Francisco cocksucker,
beams down pleading Spock to stop as Khan can save Kirk. After a few phaser blasts and some haymakers, Khan is finally incapacitated. As we know from the beginning of the movie, Khan's blood saved a terminally ill patient near death. The key word being near. Unlike the little girl, Kirk is dead. Dead as a doornail. Flatlined. Life functions ceased. Thus, in this new Star Trek timeline, they now have the ability to cure death. All Bones has to do is stock Khan's blood and give a dead person a hypospray, and just like that, the dead person is now alive again. Of course, this is completely against human rights as they are taking Khan's blood without his consent. What the hell kind of socialistic utopia is this new Trek timeline supposed to be? Let me say again, being that Khan was floating in space prior to the Kelvin creating the alternate timeline, Sherlock Khan and Montalban Khan should be exactly the same. Montalban Khan couldn't save his crew with his blood, but Sherlock Khan can. Being that he is a person from the 20th century means whoever genetically modified him back in the 20th century, discovered how to cure everything. Cancer, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, the flu, and yes, death itself. Why was it never used back then? Who knows? It makes no sense, but what else is new? So in summary, in the last two movies, they created a new timeline and canonized transwarp beaming where they can now beam personnel and supplies to other systems light years away while only using the power of a one-man shuttle. This technology not only is extremely energy efficient, but also extremely portable. Thus, this technology renders space travel for shipping cargo, or passengers 100% obsolete. That is astonishingly stupid. They have also shrunk down the size of the galaxy, being that they are able to warp from Earth to the Klingon system in less than 10 minutes. That is ADHD on steroids. They have also canonized site-to-site transportation that was only able to be done in Next Generation. Apparently, that technology is old school now. And finally, they discovered how to cure death itself. Granted, this discovery was not done in the 23rd century, but actually discovered in the 20th century, and only now is it being utilized unethically in the 23rd century.
I will never forgive your ass for this shit. This is some fucked up, repugnant shit.
And there it is. My 20 issues with Star Trek Into Darkness. Was it an improvement than the last one, or was it worse? Given how bad the first one was, the bar was set so low, one can imagine there was no way it could be worse, and yet, I believe it was. The characters are just as stupid as they were before, and being that they are supposed to be a little seasoned with experience, they're idiots. They once again rely on dumb luck to resolve their dilemmas for them. Their antagonists are just as dumb, if not dumber. Even as a dumb action movie, you can't root for anybody because everybody are idiots making idiotic and petulant decisions constantly. But that's me. If you enjoyed it, I have no issues with that. However,
I don't know why you keep hiring that fucking guy.
Anyway, I hope you found the video more entertaining than the actual movie. If there is a movie you would like me to review, please comment down below. It could be one that I actually like. Until then, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you back in my next review.